The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
The international credit rating agency Fitch has maintained Georgia's sovereign rating at the BB level and kept the outlook at negative. This follows a series of downgrades. In June 2024, Fitch revised Georgia's outlook from positive to stable, and in December, amid rising political instability, to negative. In its latest update on May 30th, Fitch highlighted that the BB rating is supported by Georgia's strong economic development compared to similarly rated countries, a credible micro-fiscal policy framework, moderate public debt, and a sound banking sector. In April 2025, Georgia's economy grew by 7.5%, with cumulative growth for the first 4 months of 2024 reaching 8.8%. According to Geostat, the turnover of the private sector in April amounted over 14 billion Georgian lari, a 9.4% year-over-year increase. However, some sectors, including construction and manufacturing, saw declines. The National Bank of Georgia has raised the foreign currency loan limit to 750,000 Georgian lari for individuals with income in the national currency. The decision was made by the bank's Financial Stability Committee. According to the National Bank, the change aims to reduce dollarization in the banking sector. The new regulation will take effect on August 1st. In April 2025, Georgian banks issued a total of around 4,000 mortgage loans amounting to 325 million Georgian lari compared to the same period last year. The number of new mortgages decreased by 16%, while the overall loan portfolio fell by 18%. According to the National Bank of Georgia, in response to conditions on the foreign exchange market, it conducted net foreign exchange purchases of $267 million through BMH platform interventions in April. As a result, the country's international reserves now amount to $4.52 billion. Commercial banks operating in Georgia submitted their financial results for the first 4 months of 2025 to MBG. According to the data, the total profit of the 19 commercial banks reached 1 billion Georgian lari, which is 69 million lari, around 7% more compared to the same period last year. Out of the 19 banks, 13 were profitable in January-April, while 6 operated in loss. In the first quarter of 2025, Georgia's insurance market revenues measured by collected insurance premiums increased by 55 million Georgian lari, year-over-year, reaching 453 million Georgian lari. They mark the 30th anniversary of the Georgian lari, which was initiated actually in October. The National Bank of Georgia hosted an international conference titled From Trust to Close Cooperation in Tbilisi. The event was attended by over 300 guests from over 30 countries, including central banks officials from around the world. On May 27th, it was revealed that the State Security Service detained Giorgi Bachiashvili, who had left Georgia on March 4th. He was in the United Arab Emirates and, according to The Guardian, was detained in Abu Dhabi. Bachiashvili's lawyer, Robert Amsterdam, told BMG this was not an arrest, but a transfer. On May 29, 2024, the Georgian government named the Chinese state-owned corporation CCCC as preferred bidder in the Anaklia investor selection process. However, exactly 1 year later, the company has still not been declared the winner, and negotiations with the Georgian government are ongoing. Tempo Beverages, one of Israel's largest producer of alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages, acquired 60% stake in Zedazeni. The deal is valued $57 million.
This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elena Guanchilashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up business and economics week for you. The European Commission has published the European Economic Forecast Spring 2025, saying following another year of very strong growth, Georgia's economic activity is projected to decelerate but to remain robust at 5 to 6% in 2025 and 2026, partly reflecting positive spillovers from Russia's war of aggression on Ukraine. According to the statement, growth is expected to continue to be driven by domestic demand, especially by private and government consumption. Inflation is set to pick up temporarily due to the pass-through from wage increases and demand pressures before returning close to the central bank's target. The current account deficit is projected to widen, driven by the increasing trade deficit. The general government deficit is expected to remain contained, and the public debt to GDP ratio is set to continue declining. According to the EC, economic growth was very strong in 2024 at 9.4%. Private and government consumption were the most important growth factors, stimulated by strong wage increases, employment growth, and fast-growing consumer loans. Investment picked up strongly in the same period, supported by higher business lending, good financial results of enterprises, and strong public investment. The contributions of net exports of goods and services and of inventories to growth were negative. On the supply side, the value added increased for most services. Georgia continues to benefit from the relocation of the certain services and trade routes away from Russia following its full-scale war of aggression against Ukraine, reflecting in part a sizable inward migration from Russia. According to EC, growth is projected to decelerate in 2025 and 2026, but to remain robust at 5-6%. Private consumption is set to remain the main growth driving factor, supported by strong consumer lending and continued, albeit slower, increases in real wages. Investment is also projected to grow, driven by dynamic business loans and strong public investment, although business confidence has deteriorated markedly in the first quarter of 2025, reflecting the political turmoil in the country. The contribution of net exports to growth is set to remain negative, although lower than in 2024, as the demand for goods imports triggered by strong consumption and investment is expected to be stronger than the positive contribution from growing tourism and other services exports. The forecast is subject to an unusually high degree of uncertainty regarding domestic political developments and how geopolitical tension plays out in the region, which may adversely affect business and consumer sentiments. Supported by the economic expansion, the unemployment rate decreased significantly from 16.4% in 2023 to 13.9% in 2024 and is projected to continue falling in 2025 and 2026, although at a slower pace. The employment rate increased by 2.5 percentage points in 2024, although it remained at a relatively low level of 47.1%, according to EC. Preliminary data indicate a very strong increase in wages by 15% in real terms in 2024, which reflects several factors: the wage contagion from high-skilled migrants from Russia, notably the IT sector, the willingness of Georgian companies to compensate for rising living costs, especially of housing rents in the main cities, labor shortages in some production sectors, and the rapid decrease in inflation in 2024. Wage growth is expected to ease in the next few years, but to remain higher than productivity growth, reads the EC statement. The International Chamber of Commerce in Georgia, ICC Georgia, published the Foreign Economic Dependence Index. According to the document, Georgia's total foreign economic index saw a slight decrease from approximately 9 million in the third quarter of 2024 to around 8 million in the fourth quarter of 2024. This decline was primarily driven by a notable decrease in income from tourism and the shift in foreign investments from positive in the third quarter to negative in the fourth quarter for the others category, alongside a general decrease in exports. More in our interview with the chairman of the ICC Georgia, Fadi Asli. Fadi, thank you for being with us and taking our questions. What does ICC Georgia mean exactly under economic dependence for this index's purposes?
You know, it's an index that we produce since 2022. We take 5 factors into consideration to evaluate the dependency of Georgia on foreign countries: export, import, FDI, total remittances, and money from travel, tourism. So we compound those 5 factors for every country, and then we follow quarter by quarter and year by year the progress or the regress or the progress. And this was initially created in 2022 after the war between Russia and Ukraine, when Georgia started being flooded by Russian businesses coming here. And we realized that our dependency on Russia had increased tremendously. So we wanted to quantify it, and through this index, or dashboard rather, it's more of a dashboard than an index, we were able to follow in percentage of the total economic activity for every country how much it was, and in percentage of the GDP as well. So this is how it started, and now it is it's a very interesting document because it gives you a full vision of the economic landscape of Georgia.
What are some of the major tendency changes that this index or dashboard shows over these years, like starting from 2022 to 2024, right?
Yeah, 2024. I will tell you, I will even start from 2003. Because also we calculated for 2003, which was the last year of President Shevardnadze. We did 2012, which was the last year of President Saakashvili, and then we started with 2022. I will tell you, I will speak of Russia, because I mean Russia is a very important component of the economic life of Georgia, because you know they are the neighbors, and we are dependent on them for a lot of export and imports as well, and remittances. But I will give you an idea. In 2003, our dependency on Russia was 16%. In 2012, when Saakashvili left office, his government, it was at 9%. So between 2003 and 2012, we decreased our economic dependency on Russia. In 2022, it climbed to 20%. So we, even more than during the Shevardnadze's time, we were dependent on Russia. And then it started going down, and now in 2024, it reached 12%, which is at the same level as Turkey. Turkey and Russia are at 11.8%, both of them. The EU has been very steady, always around 20%, 19% till 21% since 2003. But what we have noticed this year is that other countries are getting more countries that are too small to be identified, but so they are all under one denomination, other countries.
Yeah.
Like in 2023, they represented 12% of the total economic activity. Now they represent 14%.
What about China?
China has increased, mainly the imports from China has increased. The rest did not increase, neither our exports, nor the remittances, nor FDI, or even tourism. But the imports have increased from China, and that's why the figure of China increased by 1% compared to last year.
Like you look at EU countries, do you look at, for example, like Central Asian countries also? We
do look at Central Asian countries, and we notice that Kazakhstan has improved on our dashboard substantially, mainly from tourism. It's mainly from tourism. So there is a lot of tourism coming from Kazakhstan, for example.
Now to go into more like interpretations, can we say at this point that Georgia's economy is diversified?
I think so. when your biggest economic partner represents 20%, and then the number two is at 12%, I think that we can say that our economic dependency is diversified.
This stage number one is EU?
Number one is EU. We are at 21% with the EU. So 21% of the total economic activity of Georgia depends on the EU.
Can we say that this dependency on Russia is a problem for Georgia at this stage?
Look, at 12%, I don't believe that it is a problem. We are mainly dependent on import and exports. We were dependent very much on remittances, but the remittances or the money flow for between 2023 and 2024 decreased by $1 billion. You know, our total remittances or money flow in 2023 were about $4 billion. Now they have become $3 billion because Russia went down from 1.5 billion to 500 million. So there has been a huge cut in money flow coming from Russia. So our only dependency is on import and export, which is, not dramatic at the level where they are.
Do you also measure like the structure of this dependence as well? Like which sectors, how much? Is this part of the dashboard at this point?
No, we measure the FDI, the remittances, and the money from tourism. But we don't get, for example, in exports, we don't look, how much minerals have been exported or wine or water or whatever. No, we take the whole figures as they come from the Geostat.
Who will use this index or dashboard?
Everybody.
In your opinion?
All the international financial institutions, they use it. As a matter of fact, when we did our presentation, the IMF was there, and many other international institutions and foreign embassies, because it gives them a perspective, and it gives them a perspective of where they stand as countries as well, because all of them would like to have a better numbers with Georgia for any countries like this, because everything is based on economy and trade. Yeah.
What type of impact does ICC Georgia see with this index and pulling together this index?
I will tell you, there are three things that are kind of that would make you look closely. One of them is FDI. It decreased dramatically. The total FDI went down from 1.9 billion in 2023 to 1.3 billion in 2024. Then the tourism decreased by 6%, but this is mainly due to a huge decrease in Turkish tourism. This means very few Turks came to Georgia in 2024 compared to 2023. And I think, in my personal opinion, it has nothing to do with Georgia. It has to do with the devaluation of the Turkish lira. Probably the Turks find it expensive to come to Georgia, and they would go to their own country for regional tourism. Then the remittances decreased by $1 billion. And the remittances from the United States decreased as well, which was kind of surprising for me because there is a big diaspora of Georgians in the United States, but surprisingly there were less remittances in 2024 than 2023.
Going back to Russia for a moment and looking at the tendency from 2022 to 2024, do you see this so-called Russian booster on Georgia's economy kind of like phasing out? Because this is one of the factors that all the international financial institutions and credit organizations look at and talk about when they pull together the outlooks of economic growth for Georgia.
Yes, I think that we have kind of normalized our economic activity with Russia. You don't have those crazy figures, whether it is FDI or money flow. or tourism even, because even tourism has decreased from Russia. So I think that we have a healthy economic relationship with Russia now. This is, I mean, the way I see the figures, I don't see something like that would raise a red flag as it used to.
From this standpoint, would you say that it was a pragmatic economic policy or pragmatic economic approach to get these dividends from Russia-Ukraine war, as the Georgian Dream did, apparently?
I mean, the Georgian Dream kept the doors open to everybody, including to the Russians. And since the Russians were fleeing their country because of the sanctions, they came to Georgia. Many of those Russians are ethnic Georgians. I mean, we cannot hide it, okay? They don't have a Georgian passport, but they're ethnic Georgians. But then, you know, there was a very big wave of anti-Russian sentiment in Georgia in 2022, 2023. So many of them didn't feel comfortable and left for better skies. Some of them went to Armenia, some of them went to the UAE, to other countries, and many of them left Georgia. And that's why we see a tremendous drop in money flow. $1 billion. I mean, 75% of the money flow is down in a year. So whether it was pragmatic or not pragmatic, that was a political decision. I mean, you cannot judge a political decisions on pragmatism. It was a political decision that they made.
Politics of pragmatism, that's how they called it.
Or the pragmatism of politics.
Yeah. Works either way. What are some of the main conclusions that we can draw from this current index?
That besides import-export, we're not doing very well. This means that tourism is down, money flow is down. This means our expat community is transferring less than they used to. And FDI is down. So what remains is import-export. Import increase more than export. Usually import is linked to FDI. I mean, the more FDI you have, the more imports you have. But in this case, we don't have much FDI and we have imports, which is a bad sign by itself. This means that we are more and more dependent on other countries for our internal consumption. And thus we would be more affected by international inflation, global inflation, by a rise of prices and other factors, which is a weakness that needs to be addressed.
And in this import-export, and especially in re-exports, also we can see, for example, automobiles and right.
Look, I mean, if you look at the figures from the United States, you will see that the imports have decreased slightly compared to 2023, but they are still very substantial. This means that this business of importing used cars to Georgia and re-exporting them is still on. Now, whether they used to export them directly to Russia, now most probably they send them to Central Asia, and from Central Asia they go to Russia. But Georgia is in the epicenter of this business, definitely. And, you know, it doesn't bring any added value to the economy, you know. It's like money transiting. That's it, you know. You pay for the cars from Georgia, they come here. You sell them, the money come back to Georgia or go back directly abroad. So there is no added value for the economy. You're not building businesses and creating a lot of jobs and contributing to the economy with this type of business.
What could be some of the recommendations coming from ICC Georgia based on this index? Which are the directions to look at, or do you use this index or dashboard?
There is obviously a lack of confidence in Georgia. Because when you don't have FDI, when you have less tourists coming, when you have less money flowing in the country, this means that there is less confidence. What the government needs to do is to address this lack of confidence and ensure that confidence is restored. But confidence cannot be restored properly if there is internal political tension. So it's all linked together. It's all linked together. Plus the tension with the West, the bad press that Georgia has in the West. Having said that, Georgia has very good reputation in the Arab world. I was in the Gulf area a month ago speaking with big business people, and they all have a very positive image of Georgia, which surprised me on one hand because I know what's going internally, but on the other hand made me happy. This means if there is a change of course in the political line in Georgia, we will be able to stand on our feet pretty fast.
What do figures at this stage show you? Is it realistic to substitute EU contribution to Georgia's economy with Chinese or Central Asian, or what we hear from Georgian government or we see from the Georgian government in the economic policy?
Look,
lately?
there has been already an increase in import from China and from other non-identified countries. But you cannot, Georgia depends strongly economically on the EU. First of all, because of the Georgian diaspora that is there. And then because it is our natural market. It's a very big market of more than 500 million consumers. It's a market with whom we have a free trade agreement. This means it's easy to export there, or easier to export there. And the euro is stable. The Georgians are used to European products now after the collapse of the Soviet Union. I mean, they identified good quality products that they bring from there. There is regularity from Europe to Georgia and from Georgia to Europe. Whereas I'm not sure how regular, for example, could be the exports from Georgia to China. That can close on the exports anytime, like Russia, I mean, it's not like a very dependable country that goes by the book. I think it would be an error to try to substitute. It is not bad to diversify and to improve our, but I mean to say, well, let's scrap the European and Western markets and work with, the Southeast Asia, we will be another North Korea here.
And my last question, Fadi, how do you explain why are the economic growth outlooks so much polarized? I mean, you can find a group of analysts and group of experts who, and also like international organizations at this point, who will tell you that for the coming 2 years, Georgia will have quite high economic growth, right? Like around 6%, maybe even higher. ADB even told us that they might be changing their outlook from 6% to even higher. And on the other hand, you have another group of analysts and experts who will tell you that in the long run, this growth is not sustainable, and this political isolation from the West will have its impact on the economic growth. I mean, what should we believe?
International financial institutions, they get their data from the National Bank mainly. Okay, so they base their analysis on the figures that they get from government. Independent observers, they gather their data from different sources, whether it's the private sector or the National Bank or the government or other sources as well, or their own research. So they have a more diversified source of information than the international financial institutions. The international financial institutions over the past 27 years that I had a business organization here, most of the time have been wrong in their calculations of or forecast of the GDP. They have been systematically wrong, and that's why every 2-3 months you see they readjust their figures, and usually they bring them down, they don't bring them up. But what is very important to know, so you can really understand where we could stand with our economic growth, is to understand what is driving this economic growth. Is it the private sector driving the economic growth? It is government spending that is driving the economic growth. Is it, donors that are spending in the country? So unless you identify the main source of growth, the main parameters that are driving this growth, you will never really understand how much growth you're going to have. So let's assume the government is going to spend by, building roads or opening highways. This will have a huge impact on the economic growth of the country. If the government doesn't have money to spend, then the growth will be much less. What is for sure is that the contribution of the private sector in this growth will not be as big as the preceding years. This is my personal opinion, because the private sector is struggling. You have a group of companies that are doing pretty well, those big ones, you see. Why? Because let's assume you have luxury cars dealers here. They are selling much more cars today than they were selling 5 years ago, luxury cars. Why? Because people from the region are coming to buy those luxury cars. And there is now a larger number of wealthy Georgians who have been working close to the government for 12 years already, who amassed a certain wealth and who are spending this wealth in Georgia. And this is contributing, on the reviving the restaurants, the regional tourism, Lopota, and buying Porsches and Mercedes and, chronograph and all this kind of thing. There is money being spent here, and there is money being spent by tourists who are coming, and that's why what we need to focus on is high-end tourists. This means if you bring tourists from the Gulf, he will go to Chronograph and buy a watch for $50,000. If you bring a tourist from, the UK, those backpackers, they will come here with their food for 1 week in their backpack. So this is where we need to readjust our focus and to understand from where the growth will be coming, to analyze it.
What was new in business this week? Natia Taktakishvili has the details.
Tbilisi Dry Port, which has been operating in a test mode for a month, will officially open on June 3. Cemal Inaishvili, chairman of the supervisory board of Tbilisi Dry Port, told BMG TV about this. He noted that an investment of $55 million will be made in the second phase of the project. We are moving directly to the second phase of the construction. The second phase provides the construction of a Class A warehouse with a total area of approximately 50,000 square meters. I can say in advance that the total investment will be over $55 million, but this might increase, said Cemal Inaishvili. Last year, the Arab Abu Dhabi Ports Group became the owner of 60% share of the Tbilisi Dry Port. The investment in the first phase of the project amounted to $20 million. Residential complex Tbilisi Hills, located in the village of Teleti, just 15 minutes drive from Tbilisi, offers its residents not only a comfortable environment but also ecologically and high-quality standard of living. The company's marketing manager Mariam Harati spoke about the details of the project with BMG TV. Tbilisi Hills is located on a land area of 331 hectares and includes real estate planned according to the European standards and 80-hole professional golf course, which stretches over 60 hectares. In the complex, customers can purchase land plots from 1,000 square meter to 11,000 square meter. Furthermore, it's planned to build residential blocks, each of which will include 44 premium class apartments, a 2-hectare park, commercial space, a cafe and pharmacy will be built near the apartments, Mariam Kharati said. The company's marketing manager drew attention to the golf course, which is among the top 100 best courses in Europe. In addition to golf, Tbilisi Hills also has a restaurant where European dishes based on Georgian natural products are prepared. The restaurant regularly hosts themed events, including yoga and breakfast, golf, brunch, jazz and wine events. As the company says, an ecological approach is a priority when building the complex. Accordingly, the construction area covers only 10% of the total territory. The rest is intended for greenery. In the future, Tbilisi Hills plans to build a well-equipped city near Tbilisi where supermarket chain, a pharmacy, school, tennis courts, spa, outdoor and indoor pools, gym, park and many adaptable spaces will be combined, which will be full of innovations and opportunities, Mariam Kharati explained. Georgi Asatiani, a managing partner of Octopus Fitness Club, declares that the number of customers increased by 6% in the first quarter of 2025 compared to the same period last year. He spoke about this with BMDG. According to him, although many sport clubs are opening in the capital city of Tbilisi, the company doesn't complain about the number of loyal customers. Despite the fact that many clubs are opening in this city, we have loyal customers who have been members of our club for many years. We are glad that in terms of loyalty, our club has a high score, he said, adding that this year the club has increased prices by 10%. The chain affected various membership fees. The price for some categories remained unchanged, while some readjusted. Following to the successful operations, Octopus added 2 new facilities last year. Among them, one is in Batumi and the second branch is in Lisi, which is equipped with a pool and spa as well. It has a seasonal nature for which demand is currently high. Initially, the main customers in the Batumi branch were foreigners, Ukrainians, Russians, Belarusians, as well as Europeans and Americans. At this stage, expats made up 75% of the customers, but now their share has dropped to 60%. In Tbilisi, the share of expats ranges from 15 to 80%. Asatiani said Octopus Fitness Club operates a total of 6 branches, 5 of which are in Tbilisi and 1 in Batumi. Newton Free School will also receive students in Batumi in a few years after Tbilisi and Saguramo. The founder and director of the school, Georgi Meladze, said in an interview with BMG TV that the Batumi branch will be designed for 1,000 students and over 20 million lari will be invested in the expansion. We expect to expand in Batumi. Supposedly, the project will be finished in 2 years. There is a great demand because international programs are not available. More than 20 million lari has been invested in Batumi. The education sector is interested for investment, although land area and construction are not cheap. If the state transfers real estate or land with conditional obligations, I think there would be greater interest in this direction. Naturally, the excess money spent will be reflected in the cost of education in the future, said Georgi Meladze. According to him, currently 1,700 students are studying in Newton Free School, and another 1,000 students will be added after the launch of Batumi branch. The Asia market has replaced the European tourist segment in Georgia. The tourist industry has to work in new direction for which the market is not fully prepared. Representatives of the sector say that Asia tourists, unlike Europeans, plan their trips in a short time and have specific requirements which are often difficult to satisfy due to the lack of services in the market. Georgia should focus on quality, not quantity, says Valery Checheria, founder and CEO of SOP Project. According to him, the purpose of visits of high-spending European guests was business trips, which have decreased today. Since the whole world is traveling, we should not focus on mass tourism. A quantity tourists spend more. All conference halls were fully loaded, but today we lost this segment. If the tourist does not get the appropriate service, they no longer try to spend much money. Direct flights and correct segmental calculations are necessary. The business is ready to introduce new products and services, said Valery Checheria, the founder of Salt Projects. The first Georgian whiskey brand, Jimshar, is working on expanding the export markets. Dimitri Tavberidze, a representative of the company Kartveli, told BMDG. It's worth noting that company Kartveli combines various brands, including Jimshar, which is the first Georgian whiskey. The company began producing whiskey in 2000, and Georgian whiskey appeared on the market in 2017. According to the company representative, the company's products participated in an international exhibition last year, where they attracted the interest of many European importers, including the Austrian market. The local market accounts for up to 30% of total whiskey production, while the rest of the product is exported to the USA, Germany, and China. Jimshar can be purchased today in all wine stores in Georgia, as well as in Carrefour chain, various chain stores as well. The basic line is sold for about 50 lari, while the premium line costs over 100 lari. We are working on new markets to increase our sales. For example, last year we were represented at Austrian Whiskey Festival, where we met European importers who were interested in our whiskey. In the near future, we think that European countries will join us. For example, Austria. The company's founder said Jimshar is the first Georgian whiskey which is produced under the brand Kartveli. In addition to whiskey, Kartveli also owns cognac and wine brands. The first Georgian wine salt brand, Marila, has expanded its products range. As the company's director, Vakhtang Vatiashvili, told BMDG, 3 types of wine salt are now available to the consumers: Katsiteli, Saperavi, and Georgian species. Marila products are already sold in such popular retail chains as 8,000 Vintages, Goodwill, Fresco, and Premier Alco. In addition, the brand is entering the international market in small batches in London, France, and New York. The product is distinguished by its special innovation. The Mediterranean sea salt and pitcher wine are used in the production of wine salt, which emphasizes Georgian uniqueness. Our wine salt is innovative in the international market, especially after Katsiteli. Salt of this color does not exist. The French indeed have wine salt, but not much a type, says Vatiashvili. According to him, the company actively cooperates with various companies, among them with the French chocolate company, which uses wine salt in its chocolate recipe. The company plans to expand production, for which it's planned to move to enterprise to Kakheti. At this stage, the price of the product in the local market amounts to 25 lari and depends on the type of packaging. On the international market, wine salt costs an average of 15 USD. Lila Berikashvili, sales manager of the Georgian ice cream brand Gurjani Ice Cream, declares that the company has increased product price by over 23%, which is related to the increase in the cost of raw materials. As Berikashvili explained in a conversation with BMDG, the season started at a relatively low pace, although the expectation is that the condition will stabilize shortly and sales will return to normal. As Berikashvili says, at this stage, they already have about 30 types of ice cream on the market, noting that demand for the product is so high that the company cannot meet the supply. The demand is so great that we cannot fully satisfy it. It's also new that we have entered Carrefour and are gradually supplying it with our products. Now, our main challenge is to enter other chain stores to make our product as accessible as possible to the customers, said Berikashvili. According to her, in the light of the increased demand, the company also plans to increase productivity, but specific numbers are not known yet. Gurjani Ice Cream is managed by LCIC. The company has been operating in the market for more than 15 years. The enterprise employs about 150 people.
The so-called Riga amphoras do not fit into the urban development of the city. They are a dysfunctional garbage dump. This ugliness should be dismantled and a new project of the same size should be built in its place, the Secretary General of the Georgian Dream Mayor of Tbilisi, Kakha Kaladze, told journalists. When asked what should be built instead of Riga amphoras, Kaladze said that the details will be discussed in the future. Kaladze said that a hotel may also be built in its place. It does not fit into the urban development of the city in any way. It is a dysfunctional, untidy garbage dump, and accordingly a good project needs to be developed that will fit beautifully into the urban area and will be functional. It will be dismantled and a project of the same size will be implemented. It may be in a different form. We're not saying that a new territory should be allocated and a new building should be built there. The aforementioned ugliness should be dismantled and a new project of the same size should be built in the place where the building stood. Maybe even a hotel. We'll see, Kaladze said. I will leave you off with a brief overview of this week's economic news and outlook, and see you next Sunday.
Despite ongoing geopolitical challenges and external shocks, the macroeconomic stability and peace fostered within the country have safeguarded the stability of Georgia's national currency. Our foreign exchange market remains resilient to fluctuations, further bolstering public confidence in the Georgian lari. Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze stated during his speech at the international conference commemorating the 13th anniversary of lari's introduction into circulation. The Prime Minister emphasized that government of Georgia, in partnership with the National Bank, is committed to promoting competition and expanding access to finance. The increase in business loans signifies more investments, the growth of local enterprises, and the creation of new employment opportunities. Our banking system is among the largest employees in the country and continues to develop year by year. Total system assets now approach 100 billion lari, surpassing the indicators of the many Eastern European nations. The National Bank and the entire financial sector strictly adheres to international sanctions and comply fully with the local legislation, Irakli Kobakhidze stated. In Q1 2025, monthly average number of Georgian resident visitors aged 15 years or more equaled 1,262,000, whose monthly average number of visits on the territory of Georgia corresponded to 1,506,000, according to the National Statistics Office of Georgia. As of the document, the monthly average number of visitors has decreased by 1.2% and the number of visits decreased by 3.1% compared to the respective period of the previous year. In Q1 2025, the monthly average number of tourist visits of Georgian residents amounted to 623,000, which is 9.4% lower than the corresponding indicator of the previous year. The majority of visits, 36%, were from the age group of 31 and 15, and the number of women equaled 55% of total number of visitors. According to the survey results, 35.6% of visitors are the residents of Tbilisi, 15.6% Imereti, Rajarlechkhumi and Khemo Svaneti region, 9.1% Ajara, Khemo Kartli region, and the rest of the regions are represented by the relatively lower shares. In Q1 2025, the main purpose of the majority of visits was visiting friends and relatives. In the reporting period, majority of visits were made in Tbilisi and Imereti region. In Q1 2025, monthly average expenditure during the visit equaled 242 million lari, 8.8% lower compared to the corresponding indicator of the previous year. As for the average expenditure per visit, it decreased by 5.9% and equaled 160 lari. The Georgian financial system remained stable and continues to support lending, according to the National Bank of Georgia's latest Financial Stability Committee report. As of April 2025, the banking sector shows strong capital and liquidity levels. Annual loan growth excluding exchange rate effect, reached 15.5%, driven primarily by the business lending. The loans to GDP ratio remains below its long-term trend and no changes are planned for the counter-cycle capital buffer at this stage. To reduce dollarization risk, the National Bank of Georgia has
raised the limit for unhedged foreign currency loans from 500,000 lari to 750,000 lari, effective from August 1, 2025. Individuals earning in lari will not be allowed to take out foreign exchange loans above this new threshold. The next Financial Stability Committee meeting is scheduled for October 1, 2025. Registration for summer kindergartens will open on June 9 and continues through the end of the month. This summer, 55 kindergartens will serve approximately 20,000 children across Tbilisi. Tbilisi Mayor Kakakaladze announced at the municipal government meeting. Online registration is available on Tbilisi Kindergarten Management Agency website www.kids.org.g. The program is designed for children aged 2 to 6. Teachers working during the summer season will receive additional bonuses as compensation. According to Kakakaladze, kindergartners have been selected based on geopolitical principles to ensure that services are equally accessible to residents of all districts within Tbilisi. The mayor also added that the project will be funded with up to 5 million lari from the 2025 city budget. It's great honor for me to lead this agency to serve our country and people alongside the dignified and proud police officers and employees of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Gela Geladze stated after being introduced as the new Minister of Internal Affairs at the government administration. Gela Geladze thanked the Georgian Dream Team for their support. I thank the Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze for the trust he has shown in me. I would also like to thank the Georgian Dream Team for their support. Additionally, I would like to express my deep respect to Vakhtang Gomelauri. Over the past few years, he has made a significant contribution to the process of reforming Ministry of Internal Affairs. It's great honor for me to lead this agency and to serve our country and people alongside the dignified and proud police officers and employees of Ministry of Internal Affairs, noted Gela Geladze. Gela Geladze will replace Vakhtang Gomelauri as the Minister of Internal Affairs. Geladze was introduced in this new role by Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze during a briefing held at the government administration. Earlier, Minister of Internal Affairs Vakhtang Gomelauri announced about his resignation. A draft law on grants was initiated by the Parliament of Georgia. According to the amendments, grants issued under the several programs will not require government approval. Specifically, the draft law states that the procedures established by paragraph 3 of Article 5 of the law will not apply to grants issued by international sports associations, federations and committees, individual financial assistance provided for general and higher education and scientific work outside Georgia's borders, as well as grants issued under the European Union's Research and Innovation Program, Horizon Europe, and EU program Erasmus+. Under the current legislative framework, grants issued through the Horizon Europe and European Union's Erasmus programs require prior approval. Georgia contributed financially to the implementation of these initiatives. Grants under these programs are generally considered to pose lower risk regarding sovereignty, political interference or security concerns. Therefore, it's advisable to extend the exemption from approval procedure to these specific programs, the draft law stated. Previously, amendments to the law on grants mandated that government approval or approval form an authorized body designed by the government was mandatory for grant issuance. Receiving grants without such approval was prohibited.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.